Thank you, Concorla. I'm proud to speak on behalf of the Labour Party today in supporting our motion to enhance the rights of workers and to provide greater employment protections for those in precarious and low-paid work. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome the Cleary's workers here tonight, Susie McGowan and her colleagues, all our trade union brothers and sisters, Grace Williams and all of those from Labour Youth who led a campaign on this and led a petition to you today, Minister. I had hoped you'd give them more time, but maybe in future you might facilitate that. And also welcome my SIP2 colleagues, members in the contract cleaning and security industries who helped negotiate the new employment regulation orders which came into force last October and helped so many people. I wish both ministers well in their new roles, and I say that sincerely. The foundation of the Labour Party in Ireland is inextricably linked with the trade union movement, and we've argued throughout our history that the best means of strengthening the hand of workers and their unions is through the cooperation both of organised and political labour. This means that we have been unswearing in our support for workers in both government and opposition. I call on every deputy in this House to support this motion because it is the right thing to do. The longer the picket, the shorter the strike is a common adage amongst trade union members, and it refers to the solidarity between workers from all sectors and their representatives standing together against abusive employment practices. Today, myself and my Labour colleagues reaffirm our commitment to the cause of the working people of Ireland. Labour's last term in government was marked by the economic collapse we inherited from our predecessors, where over 250,000 people lost their jobs. We also governed against a backbone where collective bargaining rights were being curtailed across Europe and where there existed a significant downward pressure on wages in already low-paid sectors, not least as a result of Fianna Fáil cutting the minimum wage before leaving office. It is remarkable then that during Labour's term we increased the minimum wage on two separate occasions. We instituted collective bargaining rights, re-established joint labour committees and provided much-needed protections for workers by way of sectoral employment orders and registered employment agreements. We also established a commission to look at low pay in Ireland, and we would call on the government to act on the recommendations of this commission quickly. In addition, we began to tackle so-called zero-hour contracts, or if-and-when contracts, to end the cycle of precarious work amongst the low-paid in Ireland. It is also a credit to our party that despite the economic turmoil within which we toiled for the first few years of the previous government, that there wasn't one single mandatory redundancy in the public sector. So our efforts and record on workers' rights speaks for itself. Our dignity at work agenda was evident in every decision we made over 5 years, which is why it is so outrageous that the current programme for government pays little more than lip service to the rights of working people in Ireland. We have no Minister for Labour Affairs. Why is that? Was it just forgotten about? Is it similarly the reason why the Department of Environment was forgotten about? In fact, workplace issues form just 2 paragraphs in this entire comprehensive document. It is undoubtedly true that with Labour in government, the economy revived. Unemployment fell from 15% to below 9%, and currently over 1,000 jobs are being created each week. However, in that regard, stronger economic growth should not mean a race to the bottom in the conditions for workers. That is why Labour supports the Living Wage initiative. We would increase the minimum wage in Ireland to £11.50 per hour, ensure that workers in low pay can live and not simply survive. A rising cost of living necessitates wages to move upwards and to ensure that work pays in every instance. We call on the government to now commit to bringing in a living wage, leading the way on progressive work practices in Ireland. The House will all remember the Taoiseach's pledge that Ireland would be the best little country in which to do business. Labour's ambition is much broader, encompassing the whole of civil society and in keeping with our traditions as a social democratic party. Our ambition is for Ireland where work is rewarded, work pays, and where working people benefit first from any economic prosperity. The old model of trickle-down economics has failed, and it is incumbent on all of us as legislators to recognise this. It is hard to believe that despite the lockout occurring over a century ago, there exists a cohort of employers willing to exploit their staff and undermine their conditions still. The Cleary's workers, who are here tonight, were absolutely abandoned by the new owners of their store with no notice, an example of vulture capitalism where profit supersedes human dignity at all levels, an absolute disgrace. These workers have been mainstays of Cleary's for decades and were shown damn all respect in the termination of their employment. We call on the Government to legislate for the protection of workers in these informal insolvencies and collective redundancy situations. Currently, we have Tesco, who are seeking to rewrite the contracts of all their workers, or some of their workers, without adequate justification of the agreement, of representatives of the workers. I welcome that they have recently chosen to negotiate with Mandate as the representative body of the workers, where others have failed to do so. But the industrial relations mechanisms of the state must be strengthened to ensure that employers are compelled to engage with unions on every level. In the aforementioned instances of Cleary's and Tesco's, as well as in the disputes with Dunnes Stores, Greyhound Waste, La Zenza and the Paris Bakery, Labour members and activists and trade unionists have stood in support of workers fighting to vindicate their rights, not simply as units of labour, but as human beings deserving of decent conditions and protections. Further is my fundamental belief, as a former SIP2 shop steward myself, that people have a right to feel safe and secure in their workplaces. The Government must legislate to provide statutory redress for victims of workplace bullying. I also want to highlight the rights of workers beyond just PAYE employees. We must support small businesses, local enterprise and the self-employed. But this sector is being absolutely hampered by bogus self-employment, which is diverting much-needed government support away from legitimate work and towards exploitation of loopholes in our taxation system. We must tackle bogus self-employment to ensure that the resources of the state are put to work in the best interests of tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. And may I state, Count Corla, this is not just prevalent in the construction industry. It's also prevalent in the IT industry, coming into the education industry and in other areas as well. Freelance workers, such as journalists, deserve protections which union recognition brings, and so we are calling on government to extend collective bargaining rights to freelance workers in recognition of the unique role they play in Irish society. We in Labour are committed to combating the casualisation of work, and we will pressure the government to enhance the rights of workers every step of the way. We often talk about new politics in this chamber, and I would like to thank those in this chamber who are going to support this Labour Party motion tonight, the parties and the independents who do. It is a shame, therefore, to read the amendment forwarded by Sinn Féin in opposition to our motion. It is clear that Sinn Féin would rather party political points scored than meaningful engagement on this issue, and that speaks to their true intentions. While Labour in the Republic is trying to form a coalition of political thought and trade unions to tackle if and when contracts and zero-hour contracts, Sinn Féin in government in Northern Ireland stand over one of the highest rates of proliferation of zero-hour contracts anywhere in the world. And let me repeat that, anywhere in the whole world. So do something about it. While Labour struggled against Conservative interests trying to undermine trade union rights during the last government, a battle which we won, Sinn Féin cheer-led hard-left governments across Europe who equivocated on public sector pensions and collective bargaining rights and who enforced cuts to working people far beyond any measures introduced here. It was because of the sterling work of trade unionists right across Ireland, in concert with the Labour Party in government, that workers were protected during their last term. It is notable that Sinn Féin didn't use their first private members' business to support workers' rights, but instead were trying to force the redundancy of thousands of workers in this country. So it is clear that Sinn Féin talks a big game in opposition, but actually will not follow through on any false commitments. Just yesterday, Count Corla, I met a number of Cleary's workers.
Deputy Cullinan,
Can I have my time, please, Count Corla?
Yeah, you can.
Never interrupted any of them.
Yes, yes.
Can I have my time, please?
You can.
Just yesterday, if you'd be polite enough to listen, they're sitting up there looking
Kelly,
down
if you'd
at you.
address your remarks
I met
to the
a number.
chair.
Yeah, just yesterday. I will, Count Corla. Just yesterday, I met a number of former Cleary's workers, and being honest, their resolve for justice should be an inspiration to each and every one of us in this House. It is with those workers in mind that I think we can all agree such a situation, and I hope we all can agree on this, should never be allowed to occur in Ireland again. It is in the spirit of supposed new politics I call on all sides now in this House to engage meaningfully and think about Labour's motion, and to send the message out to unscrupulous employers that the people of Ireland will not stand for any attempt to undermine the pay and conditions of workers. In an effort to build a genuine, decent society in our country, we must protect the vulnerable and the low-paid against greed and profiteering. We must stand up for a workers' republic. So a vote by this House in favour of this motion would be a vital first step. Would be a vital first step. I was interrupted, Concord.
Well, I've given you time for the interruption.
I am concluding.
I'm afraid you have to conclude.
Would be a vital first step in setting this agenda for this House and for this country. I ask you to
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy. Now we